Welcome back to the deep dive. Usually, when we talk about high-stakes corporate strategy, we're looking at things that feel, I don't know, exciting.
Right, like mergers or acquisitions.
Exactly. Or maybe some breakthrough piece of technology. But today we are looking at something that, let's be honest, usually gets dismissed as administrative homework. We are talking about the schedule.
It is the unsexy plumbing of the project management world.
Yeah, that's exactly it. And I think most people, myself included, have this mental image of a schedule as just a calendar on a wall. You know, you circle a date, right? Finish project, maybe color code a few days and just sort of hope for the best.
Right, you cross your fingers.
Yeah. But we have a document in front of us today, specifically document E3.2 titled Employer Requirement Schedule Management, that completely demolishes that idea.
It really does. It's intense.
This isn't a suggestion box. This is a contract document where the employer, meaning the client with the money, is telling the contractor exactly how they have to prove they can actually pull this off.
Yes, the builder.
Right, the builder. And looking through it, this is less about time management and more about survival.
That is a really great way to put it, actually. What strikes you immediately about document E3.2 is the intensity of the control. I mean, the mission statement here isn't just finish on time.
Right.
The text explicitly says the goal is to optimize the feasibility and achievability of the key milestones.
Optimize feasibility. That sounds like heavy corporate speak.
It does, but it translates to something very simple. It means don't tell me what you hope will happen. Prove to me mathematically that your plan is physically possible.
Mathematically possible.
Exactly. We are going to unpack some really rigorous requirements here today. Things like closed networks, S-curves, and strict float limits. These aren't just buzzwords. In this document, they are the difference between a project that succeeds and one that collapses under its own weight.
So it's essentially a lie detector test for your planning.
Precisely. A very expensive lie detector test.
So let's start at the foundation. The document makes it clear right away that the schedule isn't an island. It's not just a file on a planner's laptop that nobody else sees.
No, definitely not.
It kicks off by linking the schedule to the PEP, which is the project execution plan. Why is that connection so vital?
Well, because a schedule that sits in isolation is basically a fantasy. The text requires the contractor to submit a description of their schedule management process as part of that project execution plan.
Okay.
It mandates that this process be aligned with all other processes and disciplines.
Aligned with all other disciplines.
Yeah.
I mean, that sounds reasonable on paper, but what does that actually look like on a massive construction site for you?
It prevents the classic disaster scenario where the left hand doesn't know what the right hand is doing. So imagine you have the engineering team designing a massive steel beam.
Right.
They think they have until June to finish the drawing. But the procurement team needs to order that exact steel in May to get the best price.
Oh, I see.
And the construction team has scheduled a crane to lift it in April because, well, that's when the crane was available.
That sounds like a complete train wreck.
It is a train wreck. If those three timelines aren't aligned in the schedule, you have a crane sitting idle costing thousands of dollars a day and a procurement manager screaming at an engineer.
And a project just burning cash.
Exactly, burning cash. This document is trying to force those disciplines, engineering, procurement, construction, to actually talk to each other through the schedule data.
So the schedule is the central nervous system.
Yeah.
It has to signal every single limb of the project.
Yes, and the document emphasizes that this is a living thing. It calls for an integrated initial program, which has to be maintained and updated on a regular basis.
So it's not set it and forget it?
No, it's set it and then wrestle with it every single day.
Speaking of wrestling, the document gets oddly specific about the tools you're allowed to use to do this. It explicitly mandates Primavera P6 or an approved equivalent. I found that really interesting.
Yeah, it's a very specific call out.
Why does a contract care what software I use? Like if I'm a wizard with Excel, why can't I just use that?
That is a great question, and it's one that gets asked a lot by people who are new to this scale of work. The reason is the difference between a painting and a database.
A painting.
Yeah, think about an Excel Gantt chart. It's a painting. It looks like a timeline, but it's totally static. If you move one bar, the others don't move unless you manually shift them.
Right, you have to drag them over.
Exactly. Primavera P6, on the other hand, is a relational database.
So it's doing math in the background.
It is doing heavy logic in the background. The document requires the submission as an .xer file. That's the native P6 data format.
So they don't just want to print out.
No, they don't want a PDF of your timeline. They want the source code. They want to be able to open the hood and see the engine running. They need to see the logic linking task A to task B.
Because a spreadsheet just can't handle that.
A spreadsheet simply cannot handle the complex modeling. We're talking thousands of interacting variables that this document requires.
It's the difference between showing someone a screenshot of an app and giving them the actual code to run it.
That is the perfect analogy. They need to run the model themselves to see if it breaks.
Okay, so we have the software. Now let's talk about the structure. The document throws around a specific term a lot. Level 4. It says the schedule must be presented at this level. For those of us who don't speak fluent project controls, what are the levels?
Think of it like Google Maps.
Right.
Level 1 is the globe view, the absolute executive summary. Start project and end project.
Got it.
Level 2 might be the continents, so the major phases. Level 3 is the countries. Level 4, which this document mandates, is the detailed deliverables schedule. We are down to the street view.
So we aren't seeing build hospital, we're seeing install door handle.
Close. The text defines it as having assigned resources and detailed work activities. It's used for advanced planning of near-term future work.
So very granular.
Extremely granular. Pour concrete foundation, section A. Install rebar wall B. The reason the employer demands level 4 is pure accountability.
Because you can't hide anything.
Exactly. You can hide a lot of delays in a level 2 bar that spans 6 months. You can't hide anything in a level 4 task that only lasts 3 days.
And the document says all of this has to roll up into one integral Gantt chart. But here is the part that really caught my eye. There is a phrase in the text, interdependencies between the activities in such a way that a closed network is established.
Ah, yes, the closed network.
It sounds almost philosophical. A closed network, what does that mean in practice?
It is arguably the most important concept in the entire document. If you don't have a closed network, you do not have a schedule. You have a wish list.
Walk me through that. What does an open network look like versus a closed one?
An open network has what we call dangling logic. Let's say you have a task like install Windows. In an open network, that task might just be sitting there on a date.
Like you just typed in March 1st.
Exactly. But in a closed network, as mandated here, that task must have a predecessor, something that must happen before it, like build wall framing.
Right.
And it must have a successor, something that happens after it, like paint walls.
So nothing floats in space.
Nothing floats except for the very first start milestone and the very last finish milestone. Every single other activity must be chained together.
Why is that so strict?
This is crucial because of the ripple effect. If the window delivery is delayed by a week, a closed network automatically pushes the painting, the flooring, and the final handover out by a week. It calculates the impact for you.
So if I pull one thread,
The whole web moves, exactly.
Yeah.
If you don't have a closed network, if you just have tasks floating there without links, you can delay the windows for a year and the schedule will still say the painting is happening in March.
which is useless.
Completely useless. The document is strictly forbidding that kind of open logic.
It sounds like the document is trying to outlaw optimism.
It's definitely trying to outlaw blind optimism. It forces you to acknowledge physics.
Right.
You simply cannot paint a wall that hasn't been built no matter how much you want to catch up.
Which brings us to the quality of the data we put into this machine. The document demands realistic estimations and man-hour norms. I feel like the word realistic is doing a lot of heavy lifting there.
It really is. The text says you can't just pick a duration that fits the deadline.
Right. You can't just say, well, the boss wants it done in 3 days, so let's make the task 3 days.
You absolutely cannot do that. You have to use man-hour norms.
Meaning industry standards.
Exactly. If the norm says it takes 10 man-hours to install a ton of steel and you have 50 tons, the schedule must reflect 500 hours of work.
That determines the duration.
Yes. If you try to say you can do it in 200 hours, the employer will point to this clause and say, show me your math. Where is the miracle coming from?
I love that. Show me the math behind the miracle.
Oh,
Okay, so we have all these tasks linked in a closed network. Now we have to talk about the scariest term in project management, the critical path.
The path of no return.
The document defines subcritical paths in a very specific way involving float. Can you unpack float for us first? Because to me, float sounds like a root beer float, which is delightful. I have a feeling this is far less delightful.
Much less delightful. Float is essentially wiggle room.
It's the amount of time you can delay a specific task before it pushes the final end date of the project.
Okay.
So if you have install sink and install toilet and the sink doesn't hold up the next step, you might have 5 days of float. You can do it Monday or Friday. It doesn't really matter.
But the critical path has 0 float, right?
Correct. The critical path is the longest sequence of dependent tasks. If any task on that path slips even 1 day, the entire project is 1 day late.
Wow.
But look at how document E3.2 defines subcritical. It says any path where the total float is smaller than 2 weeks is considered critical.
2 weeks.
Yeah.
On a project that might span years. That seems incredibly tight. It is suffocatingly tight, but it acts as an early warning system. The employer is essentially saying, I don't care if technically you have 10 days of wiggle room. If you are within 14 days of delaying the whole project, I want that flagged as a crisis right now.
It forces a sense of urgency long before the actual deadline is missed.
Exactly. It prevents the student syndrome, waiting until the night before to write the paper. If your buffer drops below 2 weeks, the alarms go off.
And the text links this logic to logical endpoints like milestones and the payment schedule. That's the carrot, I assume.
Or the stick, depending on how you look at it.
Oh.
The schedule has to align with payment milestones. This connects time directly to cash flow.
Right.
If your schedule logic is broken or if you miss that critical path milestone, you don't just lose time, you don't get paid.
Mm.
That ensures the contractor cares about the closed network just as much as the employer does.
Money talks. So we've got the logic, we've got the network, we've got the panic about the 2-week float, but a 10,000-line schedule is hard to read. The document asks for visualizations. It brings in these heavy visual tools like S-curves and manpower histograms.
These are the visual lie detectors of project management.
S-curve sounds very technical, but it's really just a line chart, right?
It is, but it has a very specific shape. Typically, a project starts slow, which is the bottom of the S.
Okay.
Then you mobilize, you get everyone on site, and productivity shoots up. That's the steep middle part of the S. Then as you finish and do the final touches, it tapers off at the top.
And the document asks for planned versus actual S-curves.
That is the detector right there. You plot 2 lines on the same chart. The planned line is what you promised to do. The actual line is what you effectively did.
So if the actual line is dipping below the planned line,
There is a gap, and that gap represents delay and usually lost money. You cannot talk your way out of a sagging S-curve. It's right there in black and white.
and the document says this must be resource loaded, including waiting factors. Why is that distinction important? Why not just track the time passing?
Because time passing does not equal progress. You could spend a week sweeping the floor, but you haven't built anything. Resource loading means attaching the cost and the effort to the task.
Which allows the employer to measure what the text calls earned value.
Yes, earned value. It's a concept that asks for every dollar I spent, did I get a dollar's worth of building?
Right.
The S-curve visualizes that. If you've spent 50% of the budget, but the S-curve shows you've only completed 30% of the work, you are in deep trouble. And the document wants these curves per discipline and an overall project curve.
Then there are the histograms. The text mentions man-hour histograms for direct and indirect manpower. This is basically just a headcount chart.
Yes, but it's a highly predictive one. It shows how many bodies you need on site week by week. The document requires this to spot bottlenecks early.
Give me an example of a bottleneck here.
Let's say your schedule logic is perfect. Your closed network is beautiful. But the histogram shows that in week 20, you need 800 electricians to hit your targets.
But you can only physically fit 200 on the site.
Exactly. Or maybe there simply aren't 800 electricians available in the entire city. The histogram reveals that resource clash months in advance.
So it stops you from scheduling the impossible.
It's predicting the traffic jam before you even get in your car.
It feels like this entire document is designed to strip away excuses.
Yeah,
You know, I didn't know we needed that many people. Look at the histogram. I thought we were on time. Look at the S-curve.
if that is the exact intent, no surprises.
Which leads us perfectly into the reporting section. If the schedule is the plan, the report is the confession. There is one requirement here that I honestly found kind of brutal, the red flag report.
It is brutal, but necessary.
The document says this report must list activities that have not started yet, even though the current date has passed the baseline start date.
It is a list of failures. There is really no other way to describe it.
It's not just a generic status update. It's forcing the contractor to write down line by line here is exactly where I screwed up this month.
It combats the ostrich effect. In construction, there is a massive, massive temptation to bury bad news.
Right. To just say, oh, we're a few days late on the foundation, but we'll easily make it up next week.
The red flag report strictly forbids that. It forces the contractor to look the employer in the eye and acknowledge every single slip immediately.
And it's not just looking backwards either. The document demands a schedule look ahead, specifically a forecast of 2 months into the future at that detailed level 4.
Right, so not just we are working on the roof, But day 1 lift tiles, day 2 secure flashing, it keeps the focus entirely on the immediate horizon.
But here's the real so what. What happens when the red flags wave? What happens when the S-curve sags? The document doesn't just want a report of the bad news.
No, definitely not. This is the actionable part. The text requires a description of schedule, recovery, acceleration, and/or delay mitigation measures.
Which is just corporate speak for how are you going to fix this?
Exactly. You are delayed. Fine. What are you doing about it? Are you working weekends now? Are you paying for air freight instead of shipping by sea? Are you bringing in a second crew?
You can't just report a delay.
You are contractually obligated to propose the exact solution in the same breath.
It also mentions daily site reports tracking manpower. That seems like an overwhelming amount of paperwork.
It is, but it provides that granular accountability we talked about. If you claimed in your recovery plan that you'd have 50 guys on site tomorrow to catch up, and the daily report shows only 10 showed up, you get caught immediately.
So taking a step back here, we've looked at the closed network, the critical path, the S-curves, the red flags. When you synthesize all of this, what is document E3.2 actually doing? It feels like it's trying to turn a construction site, which is inherently messy and chaotic, into a pristine math equation.
That's probably the best way to describe it. It is a fundamental attempt to engineer out the chaos.
Using all these rules.
Yes, it uses these strict rules. Closed networks float limits resource loading to force reality onto the plan. It removes the ambiguity. It removes I think so, and replaces it with the data shows.
It's incredibly rigorous. But I have to ask, does it actually work?
In what sense?
Well, we know reality is messy.
Right.
Weather happens, supply chains completely break down, people get sick. This document creates a closed network where every single activity affects the next one in a perfect mathematical chain. Is there a danger that the system becomes too rigid?
That is the ultimate tension at the heart of project management. The document demands realistic estimations, but it creates a system where a single delay ripples through absolutely everything.
Right.
If you make the system too rigid, it shatters the moment reality deviates from the plan.
So the idea of a perfect schedule is a bit of a myth.
The perfect schedule is a myth, absolutely. But the process of scheduling the discipline forced by document E3.2 is what actually saves the project.
How so?
You will never follow the plan perfectly. But without the plan and without the mechanisms to measure exactly how far you've drifted from it, you are just lost in the woods.
That is a great takeaway. The value isn't in predicting the future perfectly. It's in having a system that tells you exactly how wrong you are as soon as possible so you can step in and fix it.
Exactly. Knowledge is power even when the knowledge is we are 2 weeks late.
Well, whether you are building a billion-dollar airport or just trying to organize your own week, for you listening right now, maybe take a page out of document E3.2, check your logic, watch your float, and for heaven's sake, be honest about your realistic estimations.
And don't forget to close your network.
Always close the network. But it leaves you wondering something, doesn't it? In a system designed with such a tight closed network where every activity instantly impacts the next, is there actually any room left for human ingenuity or the unexpected? Or is the perfect schedule just a necessary myth we chase to keep the chaos at bay? Something to think about. Thanks for taking this deep dive with us today into the world of schedule management.
It was a pleasure.
See you next time.
If you're interested in the templates, please visit our shop. The link is in the description.
Thanks for watching. Please subscribe and see next time.